and welcome to the special broadcast Trump 2.0. Donald Trump will be America's 47th president. His is a momentous comeback in U.S. political history. He becomes only the second president to return to the White House for a second time after a gap of 4 years, after Grover Cleveland did so in the 1800s. So this victory hands Trump massive power at home, given that Republicans also control the U.S. Congress. The world is grappling with what this change of guard would mean for them. So on this special broadcast today, we will talk about what Trump 2.0 would mean for America, for India, and for the rest of the world. Our correspondent from Ground Zero, former diplomats and experts will put it all in perspective for us. I'm Munmin Bhattacharya. Here are the top stories. Donald Trump sweeps to victory in a stunning comeback in the U.S. presidential polls, becomes the first after Grover Cleveland to win non-consecutive presidential terms. Donald Trump delivers his victory speech, says he will stop wars and not start new ones.
We had no wars, 4 years we had no wars, except we defeated ISIS. We defeated ISIS in record time, but we had no wars. They said, he will start a war. I'm not going to start a war. I'm going to stop wars.
World leaders congratulate Donald Trump on his victory. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi says he looks forward to further strengthening India-US partnership. So Donald Trump has been elected president with a stunning comeback 4 years after he was voted out of the White House and ushering in a new U.S. leadership. 78-year-old Trump recaptured the White House on Wednesday by securing more than the 270 electoral college votes that are needed to win the presidency. Trump's victory in the swing state of Wisconsin pushed him over the threshold that clinched it for him literally. Trump also led Harris by about 5 million votes in the popular count. As far as swing states are concerned, Trump has already won the swing states of Georgia and North Carolina, Pennsylvania, Arizona, Michigan, Wisconsin, and Nevada. All these states have been called by the American media, and Trump has claimed victory as well. And the world leaders have congratulated him too. So Donald Trump claimed victory and pledged to heal the country on Wednesday as results put him on the verge of beating Kamala Harris in a stunning White House comeback. Our next report brings you more.
In the early hours of Wednesday morning, former President Donald Trump took the stage in West Palm Beach, Florida, to declare victory in the U.S. presidential race, addressing a roaring crowd of supporters in an emotional and unifying speech. Trump, alongside his family and campaign team, expressed gratitude for his supporters and emphasized a vision of unity for the country.
We're going to help our country heal. We're going to help our country heal. We have a country that needs help, and it needs help very badly. We're going to fix our borders. We're going to fix everything about our country. And we made history for a reason tonight, and the reason is going to be just that. We overcame obstacles that nobody thought possible, and it is now clear that we've achieved the most incredible political thing. Look what happened. Is this crazy?
Throughout his speech, Trump highlighted his commitment to the American people, underscored his vision for a revitalized nation, one united by a common purpose and shared prosperity.
I will fight for you, for your family, and your future. Every single day I will be fighting for you, and with every breath in my body.
Trump's gratitude extended to a diverse group of high-profile supporters, from billionaires to pop culture figures and long-standing Republican lawmakers. Notably, he gave a special mention to billionaire entrepreneur Elon Musk, calling him a star in American innovation.
We have to protect our geniuses. We don't have that many of them.
Even in his recent speeches, Trump also used religious language to describe his personal journey and his political mission, often referencing an assassination attempt that took place in Butler, Pennsylvania.
Many people have told me that God spared my life for a reason. And that reason was to save our country.
Trump's message of unity and hope, paired with a commitment to put divisions in the rearview mirror, resonated deeply with his supporters in West Palm Beach and across the country. As his speech concluded, he left the stage with a promise to guide the country towards a more prosperous and united future. Bureau Report, DD India.
And our correspondent is now joining us from Ground Zero. Shubhendu Ghosh joins us live from Washington, D.C. Shubhendu, only yesterday we were discussing if the suspense would continue for days or even weeks. And here we are looking at the results in a sense that the media there has called the election. The story is out, revealed far sooner than many had thought. What do you think made it swing for Donald Trump?
Yeah. Absolutely, Munmun. Good morning to you from Washington, D.C. I'm right in front of the White House, and even before the polling had begun, the preparation for the inauguration of the new presidency had already started. So you can see the White House. If you can get some closer shots of the White House, you see a lot of bustle there. The preparation is basically to put up those facades so that a lot of people who will come for the inauguration will have place to sit and participate in it. So that's where we are. That's going to be the house and the office of the president, as is the tradition. And Donald Trump is, as we see, going to be the inhabitant of that magnificent house once again. Yes, the potboiler of U.S. elections. The climax unfolded faster than one could imagine, with the clarity with which Donald Trump has led his victories across different states, particularly in the swing states. Munmun, is quite remarkable. Not something that was even vaguely predicted in the opinion polls, initial polls in the run-up to the elections. Democrats for now have gone into a huddle. Vice President Kamala Harris was in fact supposed to be at her alma mater, Harvard University, last night, U.S. time. And she was supposed to deliver a speech and speak to the supporters about all the engagements during the elections. But that event did not take place, given the very, very difficult numbers that Democrats had to grapple with. But for now, the focus again turns to Donald Trump, who is, in fact, has put up a remarkable show and has addressed the media, addressed the people of America as well. We are on a standby to learn at what time Kamala Harris is expected to deliver her speech to concede the elections. But for now, all eyes focus on Donald Trump and the new presidency.
Absolutely. So are you picking up anything on Trump 2.0 team? We heard him talk about Kennedy Jr. when he said that let's make America healthy again. So what are you picking up on the team, if at all?
It's just a little too early, Munmun, to be able to comment on that. There are different names speculating, but it's difficult for us to comment on that in an official manner. For now, we'll have to see what the team would look like. But we do see the presence of Elon Musk throughout the campaigning period. Both of them, almost as a team, had campaigned during the elections for the Republicans, for Donald Trump. Donald Trump making a special mention about Elon Musk in his victory speech as well. And given that he's innovator, given that Elon Musk also heads X, the social media platform, and its engagement in the media, the politics of America and the world, we'll have to curiously also wait and see if Elon Musk, in fact, becomes the face of one of the important segments, arms of the government, and we'll have to see what would that be. But yes, Elon Musk, definitely the closest member, it appears, of Team Donald Trump at the moment.
Absolutely. Well, Shubhendu, will request you to stay on with us as we broaden the discussion and get more perspective from more guests and you as well. So stay on with us. But before that, let's tell you that over the course of the US President-elect Donald Trump's presidency in his previous tenure, Prime Minister Narendra Modi and he did share a very strong chemistry, and Trump appeared to foster a relationship that extended beyond formal diplomatic protocol, highlighting a unique warmth rarely seen between a US president and an Indian Prime Minister in the past. The relationship between the two leaders has been characterized by strong diplomatic ties, strategic cooperation and evident in personal warmth as well.
India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi was among the first world leaders to congratulate Donald Trump on a historic election victory. In a social media post, PM Modi said, as Mr. Trump builds on the successes of his previous term, he is looking forward to renewing the collaboration to further strengthen the India-US comprehensive global and strategic partnership. The Prime Minister called upon Mr. Trump to work together for the betterment of people of India and the United States of America and to promote global peace, stability and prosperity. The rapport between India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi and Donald Trump reflects beyond symbolism. Strong diplomatic ties, strategic cooperation and visible personal camaraderie mark the relationship between the two leaders. Their friendship was showcased in large events like Howdy Modi in Houston in 2019 and Namaste Trump in Ahmedabad in 2020, where they addressed huge crowds, highlighting their mutual admiration.
The ties further as we see
Namaste Trump in Ahmedabad was attended by over 100,000 people, which showcased the personal and diplomatic ties between the two nations and underscored the symbolism of the Trump-Modi partnership. Let's have a look at those factors which have played a key role in strengthening ties between the two leaders. Both leaders prioritize strengthening defense and security ties, particularly in countering terrorism and addressing regional threats, such as those posed by Pakistan. Trump reduced funding to Pakistan on charges of its cross-border terrorism and also because of its support to Taliban in Afghanistan. Their shared vision for a free and open Indo-Pacific led to closer cooperation, especially in relation to China's growing influence. This aligned vision deepened their collaboration in defense and security matters, including joint military exercises and India's role in the Quad alliance. PM Modi and Trump enjoyed a personal bond demonstrated by their public interactions at large-scale events like Howdy Modi in 2019 and Namaste Trump in 2020. Their camaraderie was widely viewed as a reflection of a strong personal connection, contributing to the overall strength of the bilateral ties. During the COVID-19 pandemic, their partnership extended to health initiatives, with India providing hydroxychloroquine to the United States. Later, America supported India's pandemic response. There was substantial improvement in India-US relationship under the previous presidency of Donald Trump. Trump's administration continued to strengthen the US-India strategic partnership, especially in terms of defense cooperation. The signing of key defense agreements like the Communications and Information Security Memorandum of Agreement 2018 and Basic Exchange and Cooperation Agreement 2020 deepened military collaboration. These agreements allowed for increased interoperability between the two countries' forces, joint military exercises, and shared access to sensitive technologies. It was under the leadership of PM Modi and Donald Trump that India and US began 2+2 dialogue. In September 2018, India and US held the first 2+2 dialogue. During a 2+2 dialogue in New Delhi, the Communication Compatibility and Security Agreement was signed that gives India access to advanced communication technology used in US defense equipment and allows real-time information sharing between the two countries' militaries. Quad, an alliance between the US, India, Japan and Australia, was revived under the Trump presidency in 2017. India had signed a letter of offer and acceptance with the US for 24 MH-60R Seahawk anti-submarine warfare helicopters under Trump administration. India was identified as major defense partner by the United States under Trump administration. Thanks to the excellent personal rapport between PM Modi and Donald Trump, India-US relations scaled new heights, and it is geared up to soar higher with the election of Donald Trump as the 47th President of the United States. Raghav Kumar Jha's report for DD India.
We now invite the dynamic...
World leaders congratulated Republican Donald Trump on Wednesday after he won the U.S. presidential election, capping a stunning political comeback 4 years after he left the White House. India's Prime Minister Narendra Modi called Donald Trump his friend and said that he is looking forward to renewing their collaboration to further strengthen the India-US partnership. Among other world leaders who congratulated Trump included German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, British Prime Minister Keir Starmer, EU Chief von der Leyen, Ukraine's President Zelensky, who said that he hopes for bipartisan support for Ukraine from the United States.
This is a magnificent victory for the American people that will allow us to make America great again.
Former US President Donald Trump made a stunning political comeback to the White House on Wednesday, 4 years after he was defeated by President Joe Biden. The results delivered a clinching victory that included wins even in the swing states. Soon, congratulatory messages began pouring in for Donald Trump after he claimed victory. French President Emmanuel Macron was among the first to reach out to establish a good relationship. President Macron wrote on the X, "Congratulations, President Donald Trump, ready to work together as we did for 4 years, with your convictions in mind, with respect and ambition, for more peace and prosperity." German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, in his congratulatory message, said that the two countries would continue to work together to benefit their citizens.
Our messages are clear. Firstly, Germany will remain a reliable transatlantic partner. We are aware of the contribution we make to this partnership and will continue to make in the future. This also applies with regard to the threat that all NATO allies believe Russia poses to security in the Euro-Atlantic area.
Prime Minister Keir Starmer said the two allies would continue to work together to promote shared values of democracy and freedom. Starmer was speaking at weekly Prime Minister's Questions session in Parliament.
Mr. Speaker, can I begin by congratulating President-elect Trump on his historic election victory. As the closest of allies, the UK and US will continue to work together to protect our shared values of freedom and democracy. And having had dinner with President-elect Trump just a few weeks ago, I look forward to working with him in the years to come.
Among other European leaders who congratulated Trump included NATO chief Mark Rutte, European Council President Charles Michel, and European Commission President von der Leyen. The EU chief said in a post on the X, "I warmly congratulate Donald J. Trump. The EU and the US are more than just allies. We are bound by a true partnership between our people, uniting 800 million citizens. So let's work together on a strong transatlantic agenda that keeps delivering for them." While Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky voiced hopes for strong bipartisan support for Ukraine from United States. Zelensky, in his message on X, said, "We look forward to an era of strong United States of America under President Trump's decisive leadership. We rely on continued strong bipartisan support for Ukraine in the United States." On the other hand, Kremlin said that Russia relations with the United States were at historic low. But Kremlin was open to dialogue and would see what happens if Donald Trump returns to the White House in January.
This is an internal affair of the United States. Of course, we are closely monitoring all the information flows that come from overseas in this regard. We analyze the words that are being spoken, and of course, we'll mainly make conclusions on the issues that are on our agenda based on the statements when they appear, and on the first concrete steps.
China's foreign ministry called the US presidential election an internal affair and said that it respects the choice of US citizens. Fuzail Ahmed for DD India.
So what are the issues at play now that the American media has called the election in Donald Trump's favor? To talk about that and more, we are being joined by Shubhendu Ghosh from Washington, D.C., a correspondent who's been covering this story from there for almost a month now. Ambassador Mohan Kumar, former Indian ambassador, is also with us. Greg Simons, associate professor with Turiba University in Latvia and a geopolitics specialist, is joining us from Sweden. Such a pleasure to have all of you. Ambassador, I'll begin with you. What a red sweep in America that was. Trump becomes only the second president to return to the White House after a second time, in fact, after a gap of 4 years, after, of course, Grover Cleveland in the 1800s. Now, the Republicans retained the House, they've got control of the Senate, and they've won more gubernatorial races than the Democrats. So how did Trump pull it off?
So there's no other way to describe it than a stunning political comeback. Among all the comebacks that we have seen everywhere in the world, I would have to say this is the most stunning of it all. I also want to say that all the exit polls which talked for days on end about a close race, a race too close to call, that's just a load of rubbish. I mean, Trump has not just won the Electoral College, he has also won the popular mandate. So I think US will have to relook at how these polls are done. And more than anything else, I think it's the old saying which was made by an advisor to Clinton, it's the economy stupid. So I tend to think the two important factors which have resulted in the victory of Donald Trump has been economy and immigration.
Okay.
Everything else that the Democrats have been going on and on, which is a threat to democracy by Trump, the women's reproductive rights, and really other issues, geopolitics, for example, which I'm sure we will talk about, they have just fallen on deaf ears. So the people have made up their mind on the basis of the single most important question that Donald Trump asked them. Are you better off now than when you were under my regime or under my reign? And I think they have been very, very clear in saying, no, we are not better off, so we want you back.
So anti-incumbency, in a sense, you're saying economy and immigration pulled it off for Trump. Ambassador, the point that you had made on exit polls, I would still call them opinion polls. I'll take that to Shubhendu. But before that, Ambassador, sticking with you, why could Kamala Harris not swing it? Why did her campaign go wrong, and what really went wrong? Do you see her making another bid 4 years later? Do Democrats really encourage that?
I would be very surprised if she makes another bid. But the three important reasons why Kamala Harris could not make it. First, I think the anti-incumbency factor. She could really not dissociate herself from Biden. Second, I think she came late into the race. It's not her fault. She just did not have the time to distinguish herself from Biden. The third, I'm going to be brutally honest with you, Moon. I think it's not proven, it's not clear, but there may be an explanation related to race and misogyny in the United States. I don't have the proof for saying it, but I think America is simply not ready for a woman president, and particularly a woman of color.
So let me take that to Shubhendu. Shubhendu, is America not ready for the first woman president yet? The first Black American and first Asian American woman president at that?
Well, so it seems with the results that have come in, but we have to understand that many also have come out in support of Kamala Harris. Politically, technically, yes, she appears to have lost these elections, but it was always going to be a difficult fight. It was not just being a woman or a person of color, but the whole host of issues that in the run-up to these elections we've been focusing on. And what we now see is also an outcome of a certain latent anger. As Ambassador also spoke about economy and the cost of living at a macro level, it appears that the American economy is doing well. Unemployment is at a record low. But from day-to-day life, the cost of living has pinched people. And that has been a concern for many. Even people with a liberal outlook. Add to that the illegal immigration issue that was seen as an added burden on America. Just in the past couple of years, the record shows some 11 million illegal immigrants had entered America, some 200,000 in New York itself. It puts a lot of burden on resources of a country where people, the middle class, already is experiencing the pinch of cost of living. So all of those put together, and the fact that she was a woman, she's a woman leader of color, I think all of these factors together may have worked against her. With the kind of sweep that we are looking at, the kind of red sweep we are looking at across the swing states. They don't look like swing states, to be honest, with the numbers that are coming in at the moment. It does seem that more than one factor worked against Kamala Harris.
Yes, Shubhendu, the question on opinion polls now. Why did these polls go wrong again? All were giving an edge, you would remember, to Harris going into election day voting. And that reminds us also of 2016, when on the eve of her defeat, Hillary Clinton was assessed with 95% chance of winning. Yes, she won the 3 million more popular votes, but lost the race in the battleground states. So are pollsters unable to read the mood in tight races, or is there a built-in bias, or both?
I'm actually reminded, Munmun, of a certain conversation I had with a teenager, an 18-year-old boy who was casting his first ballot, a first-time voter. We also recorded his interaction with him and showed to our viewers. He'd said something which I did not learn from the others. So I had asked him about how are you gathering information about who to vote, what are your choices, what are the themes that you are focusing on. He said it's so difficult to find that out because the media, and he just generally referred to all the media, newspapers, television channels, he said they all seem to be so biased. They either belong to the Trump camp or they belong to the Kamala Harris camp. It's so difficult to find an objective analysis of where do people stand on the issues, what is the real impact of these issues on our lives. And he said that he had to do his own individual personal research. And I think that is also at the heart of what is going on here in terms of opinion polls, in terms of how the media, the mainstream media here in the United States had approached this election, calling them very, very close. It does not look close from the results that we're looking at. So in that sense, at the heart of it, the reason why the opinion polls seem to have failed is that these opinions clearly were of a particular section of society. People we spoke to as well, we saw Democrat supporters coming out in a more open manner and speaking about their leader. Fewer Republicans supporters, Donald Trump supporters, would speak directly. They're seen as quiet voters. There's a silent voter bloc that quietly supported Donald Trump, even while the other side passionately said that it's time for Kamala Harris and the first woman president. So in that sense, a lot of ground was missed by the opinion polls, consciously or unconsciously. And that we see in the outcome as we are seeing unfolding at the moment. Munmo?
Interesting, and there's another interesting aspect, Greg, that I would want you to answer, and appreciate your patience so far. Elon Musk, the top donor for Trump, has accused George Soros' foundation of contributing to the deterioration of societal cohesion, as he puts it. He's also put the spotlight on the strategic nature of Soros' investments in various political arenas, acknowledging the significant impact these can have on policy making. And you would remember that billionaire investor George Soros is the top contributor to the Democratic Party. Dr. Jaishankar, if I may recall that for the viewers, hit out at Soros some time back, calling him dangerous, saying he does scaremongering on citizenship. And he tries to back up his thoughts with a regime change operation as well. So would you say the awkwardness of dealing with someone who had financial backing of George Soros is not there for India, given the mandate?
Well, the mandate is clear. And I mean, you have support. I mean, you had this division of oligarchs, tycoons, however you want to call them, along ideological lines. Now, I mean, if you're looking at Soros and Bezos, I mean, they are following this kind of wokist, globalist, liberal idea, which has been a source of degeneracy and devastation, not only for the US, but more widely. And so, I mean, if we look at Musk, I mean, he is and has been crafting himself as being culturally and socially conservative. And so he's standing for these more traditional values. So I think this is one of the other factors which has been playing in with the main public. So, I mean, this division of the tycoons, I mean, it's also ideological. What kind of fundamental ideology in terms of values and vision they have for the future of the United States. And if we look, I think one of the weaknesses of this Harris campaign is that she tried to present herself as a force for change, but she's been there 4 years. And I mean, if we're to put it diplomatically, she's not the brightest person. I mean, for example, when she was trying to have this fake conversation with a voter on the phone, and she turned the phone and exposed it, which showed she was not on a call. So, I mean, you have a lot of these different factors. And I think something which would definitely motivate, of course, Elon Musk, is the fact that the Democrats and the ones around them seem very vindictive. They were going to go after him. So, I mean, he has every incentive to put everything, his heart, soul, and treasure, into ensuring that, or helping Trump to win, which has happened.
Now let's diversify into foreign policy. Greg, Trump brings with him experience of one full term. He shook up things, to put it plainly, and in broad strokes. Are we looking at another 4 years of surprise and unpredictability, or do we now know what's going to come from his stable, going by past experience?
So the 4 years, I think a lot of this is going to depend on who he chooses to have around him. If he goes back to the likes of Pompeo and Bolton and these neoconservatives who have no ideological difference to the Democrats, then he's going to be in trouble. But, I mean, you can see he's got some new supporters like Tulsi Gabbard, JFK Jr. He's got this, also Elon Musk, as we've mentioned. So he's got these new people who are much more pragmatic and much less ideological. So, I mean, if he does not bring in these old hacks into his administration, I think he could actually have some consistency and some positive impact on foreign policy and so forth. But he's going to have to fight the system, because the system, if we're looking at the government institutions, are very much more in line with the Democrats. For example, the Department of State.
Oh, yes. And we'll see more of that in the years ahead. Shubhendu, since you've been there and talking to a lot of women as well, for abortion rights of American women, what could Trump 2.0 really mean, considering that at Trump's insistence, the GOP platform for the first time in decades did not call for a national ban on abortion, and Trump even maintained that overturning Roe versus Wade was enough on the federal level and that he would like the issue left to voters of each state. Right. I think we are facing issues connecting with Shubhendu, but Ambassador, coming to you on that, what really could this mean for reproductive rights and abortion rights of women, letting women have a say on what to do with their bodies?
Say this to you, Moon, but I think the issue of reproductive rights did not resonate with everybody the way the Democrats wanted it to be. Donald Trump very cleverly fudged the issue. He never made his stance very clear on the subject. And as you rightly hinted in your remarks to the correspondent, it was left to the individual states. But I think in the list of issues that was preoccupying the voters, I think the economy, the immigration, and wars fought outside of the country, and we can discuss the wars in Ukraine and Gaza, those wars have actually resonated much more with the population, who have started asking the question, why are we spending billions of dollars when half the Americans can't even point to where the Ukraine is on a map? So that was the one which resonated much more than reproductive rights. I hate saying this because I feel very strongly about reproductive rights, as do many others, but I don't think that was the issue preoccupying the minds of voters. For the voters, I think it was economy, which as Professor Simon said, It was day-to-day living. Your correspondent also said it. It's an irony because the American economy itself is not doing too badly, but I don't think that makes a damn difference to the voters. They want to know the price of the gas. They want to know whether they can afford a home. They want to know whether they can afford groceries and so on. And they genuinely felt things were better under Trump than they were at Biden. So Kamala Harris paid a huge price. On immigration, I think some of us underestimated the issue. I think illegal immigration into the US via Mexico and other areas is really a big problem for the Latinos. The Latinos as a bloc felt very strongly. They themselves are immigrants, but they feel very strongly against illegal immigration, especially from countries which may have different religions and so on. So that resonated much more. And lastly, as I said, the wars that America have been fighting outside of their country. Remember, in Donald Trump's time, the one thing that Trump went on hammering is that I did not begin any war under my reign.
Yes.
In fact, I tried to put an end to wars. I am not interested in wars. I am not interested in spending money on these forever wars, as he said. So I think that those were the more crucial issues than reproductive rights.
Okay, you're saying that. I don't know whether the women of the US would agree with that. Shubhendu, I think, is back with us. Shubhendu, we were discussing about abortion rights of women, and now on to the gun culture. You know, the US is the only country in the world that has more guns than people. Is that here to stay despite growing instances of gun violence there?
Absolutely, Munmun. There's no doubt about that. With the time that we've spent here, we see, whatever perspective we may have on America's gun culture from the outside, here we see it as a very intrinsic part of their society. Donald Trump, of course, a passionate supporter of citizens' right to bear arms, the Second Amendment. He is a defender of that right in a manner, and now he is back in office. But also we have to see that the Democrats could only go as far as talking about regulating the access and use of guns, not really prohibit them altogether. Both Kamala Harris and Tim Walz, vice presidential candidate, are in fact owners of guns themselves. So in that sense, the argument, the deliberations in America, mainstream, went only as far as talking about regulation, tighter regulations and access to guns. But now with Donald Trump in office, I think the focus is not going to be on that in any manner about how gun culture could be transformed in favor of fewer guns in America. It does seem that it will continue to have the kind of centrality that it has had for past decades, from the beginning of American Constitution, in fact.
Also, Shubhendu, since you've closely tracked the various campaign issues, also the presidential debate that happened between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump, for health and education, what could Trump 2.0 mean? Could this be the end of Obamacare?
Yes, that's an important area of concern. The health sector in America, it's expensive. One has to rely on some sort of insurance backup. Obamacare was one such reform that came into being. And now that Donald Trump is back, and back in such a big way, we will see some reforms coming in from his side. He'll have to see that the support that he's getting, and we're getting that data from different sources, that across various demographies, Donald Trump has got support, and which has resulted in the sweep that he has got. Middle class, the educated, the non-college degree holders, every section of society, a great section has come out in support of Donald Trump. So he will have to address the concerns of the health sector. We'll have to see the innovations as they come in. In the run-up to the campaigning, there was no clear plan in terms of what would that health reform look like. He did talk about not putting the entire burden on the government, but the manner in which it could be a people and government collaboration. So we'll have to see what that reform would look like. But yes, in many ways, Obamacare as a brand, as a program, it might see its end, and in a new way, a new health reform bill will have to come from the new government, from the new president, given that it is an absolutely crucial issue for the people here in America, especially the middle class. Manmohan?
Absolutely. So that was more on the domestic issues so far. Let's now put foreign policy front and center. And Ambassador Mohan Kumar was just mentioning about that a short while back. Greg, for now, I'll come to you. In terms of foreign policy, what would Trump 2.0 really mean for the world? Because like we've been saying, there are two wars on. Ukraine and the rest of Europe want US to continue funding Ukraine. Then Trump had brokered, we remember, the Abraham Accords that led to diplomatic ties between Israel on the one hand, UAE and Bahrain on the other. Then Trump has even threatened in the past to withdraw from NATO. European powers have had a very tough time dealing with him. He was soft on North Korea and tough on Iran. So do you expect him to carry forward that legacy?
Well, I mean, a lot of his legacy was influenced by very toxic people in his administration, namely Pompeo and Bolton. So they put forward these rather, well, I would say nothing too different from what the Democrats would do. And this did hobble him. I mean, it's true he did not start any new wars, but of course he tried some risky things, such as the assassination of Soleimani in Baghdad and different missile attacks in Syria, but nothing like that. What I would predict, perhaps, is that Ukraine is going to get dropped pretty quickly. I mean, the Democrats were tired of this war. It wore them down. And I mean, if we look at the effect of the wars domestically, I mean, there's been billions spent on Ukraine and Israel. And then when you had the natural disaster there, people were offered an insulting $700. So, I mean, these foreign wars impact domestically too. So I would predict, that Ukraine will be dropped and you'll have a similar situation, what happened in Afghanistan under Biden. And what will continue is the support for Israel, because, I mean, Trump, like most of the other candidates, gave their unconditional support to Netanyahu and Israel to continue that, supporting those wars which are expanding.
Oh, okay, let's take that forward. Ambassador, you were talking about how Trump had said in his victory speech that in his first term there were no wars and that he had strengthened, in fact, the military without having to use them, though he said he had defeated ISIS. But he said that within 24 hours of assuming office, Russia-Ukraine war will stop. Greg also says Ukraine will be dropped. Is it hyperbole by Trump, or can he really deliver that fast?
Oh, no, I think some of what Trump says, you will just have to accept that he says what he means. And I think with regard to Ukraine, there is no doubt in my mind that he will straight away try to initiate talks between Ukraine and Russia. He will continue to support Ukraine in terms of aid. I don't think it will stop at once, but he will say that continued aid is dependent on your talking to Russia and finding a diplomatic solution. I think he will make some concessions to Putin. One important concession will be that Ukraine cannot join the NATO. Instead, it can join EU and other organizations, but will not be allowed to join the NATO, which, as you know, is a red line for Russia. And so I see the moment as being propitious for a diplomatic solution in Ukraine, which interestingly coincides with the Indian articulation of its position, which is that we've been saying for some time now, our Prime Minister has been saying that you cannot find a solution on the battlefield and you have to simply find a diplomatic solution.
Right.
On the Middle East, that is the conflict in Gaza, I think he has to do two things. He's going to try and do two things which may appear contradictory on the face of it. One is his support for Israel and his support for Benjamin Netanyahu, without a doubt. I think he will support Israel. He will not pretend like Biden that we will use our aid to Israel as leverage, etc.
Okay.
But he will impress on Bibi Netanyahu that you must get the hostage deal and the ceasefire deal out of the way as quickly as possible. So he will put some pressure, hopefully, on Netanyahu, my own instinct tells me that he is likely to have more success with Netanyahu than Biden had. Netanyahu has been one of the earliest leaders to actually congratulate Trump. So I think he will want both the wars to end.
Okay.
I think the big question on geopolitics, but I will leave it to you to decide whether you have the time to discuss it, which is really China. But anyway, I will leave it at that.
I could guess it. And Shubhendu, let's look at the China challenge now. After decades of ambiguity over how to deal with China's rise, the US administration under Trump had explicitly framed Beijing as a threat and a strategic rival for the first time. Will we see a renewal of Trump administration's policy of confronting China's aggressive behavior?
Absolutely, Munmun. There's no doubt the historic trade war that we saw during Trump's leadership of America, it is likely to return in a big way. And part of what the ambassador was saying about Donald Trump wanting to get over with America's engagement in the Ukraine conflict and what is happening in the Middle East would also be to focus on the priority number one for America, and an economic competitor and a strategic adversary. In that sense, Donald Trump would want to focus on China, and he's learned from the past the manner in which the tariff war could pan out. He would try to bring in some more innovations in that regard. I just want to say a little more on the Ukraine conflict front and what's going on in the Middle East. The public anger against the current administration, the Democrat administration, also had to do with how the cost of living was juxtaposed with billions of dollars being funneled into the Ukraine conflict, into weapons and aids, and similar numbers also going towards West Asia. And in that sense, Donald Trump has been able to capitalize on that anger, use it as a political weapon against the Democrat to get the sweep that he has got today. In no unclear terms, he spoke about how his priority would be to end these conflicts and America's engagement and investments in these conflicts. And therefore, it is very important for us to see his political victory in that context as well. And talking about China, yes, the tariff challenge, we'll have to see how that pans out. But yes, we'll have to see the contours of it, because remember the last time the tariff war, the trade war happened between the US and China, being two of the biggest economies, it had significant implications for global economy as well. We'll have to wait and watch. It is most certainly happening, but we'll have to wait and watch how it pans out this time over.
Taking that forward, Greg, on tariffs, China is likely to be targeted by Trump, but can India too come under renewed tariff pressure? Because you would remember that India had lost duty-free access under the decades-old GSP program, of which India was the largest beneficiary during Trump's first term.
I can see a renewed effort at what is essentially economic warfare against especially China, but also those other countries which the United States, or what Trump sees as growing economically at the expense of the United States. This includes India. So I can see that there will be an attempt to try and create an uneven global economic playing field by Trump. I mean, these are the kinds of things he tried in his first term, even with a rather divided advisors and fighting the different institutions of state. So
the world must have factored that in by now.
Yeah. So, I mean, yeah, but I think, as has been noted, I mean, the effects are not unilateral. They go both ways. And so there will be economic repercussions, not only for China, but United States, as well as other global economies.
Okay. Ambassador, could India's pharmaceutical exports to the US be impacted too? And they're quite significant. How could higher tariffs by the US and deportations impact US and Indian economies by all the tariff wars and competition that we are going to see, and a lot of protectionism vis-a-vis that? How do you see the Indian economy being impacted primarily?
So let me begin by saying that as a general point, I think the strategic community in Delhi was secretly hoping for a Trump victory. This is my assessment. But the one area in which India will come under pressure is trade policy, because Trump has been very clear that he's called India a big abuser of tariffs. So he's very clear that India is as much of a country which violates trade laws as China does. I have a problem in his equating China with India, but that's a small matter. So this is an area where India will come under pressure. I think you are absolutely right. Our exports could come under the scanner. I would also say we have to watch out for our H-1B visas.
Yes.
So these two areas are areas that I do not believe they are insurmountable, because I believe that Trump believes in bilateral or transactional bilateralism as opposed to idealistic multilateralism. Idealistic multilateralism is United Nations, WTO, etc. But as you know, Trump is transactional. So that actually might give an opening for India, that we can try and understand from him what is it that he wants, so that our exports and our H-1B visas continue unimpeded.
Okay, let's take that forward. Shubhendu, on immigration, which has been a hot button issue since the first Trump campaign of 2016. Trump is expected to double down on illegal immigration to the US. But how do you see that playing out for India, its IT companies and H-1B visas? I think you have a relative there in the United States, so you'll be able to identify that on a family level as well. And do you expect some counterbalancing also in favor of Indian companies through tax policies that Trump may come up with, some tax cuts for companies?
A little more specific details on the idea and the issue of immigration as it played out in these elections. Trump's most passionate rhetoric was against the illegal immigrants in particular, not immigrants in general who come through legal means, who come through H-1B and other visa modes. Now, illegal immigration in America has been particularly challenging past couple of years. As I mentioned earlier, some 11 million illegal immigrants had entered America, and they'd gone to different states, putting pressure on the resources, according to Donald Trump. And he had said that his priority number one would be to deport the illegal immigrants first. And interestingly, that's also a sentiment when I spoke to members of the family, as I mentioned, and also other Indian Americans, many of whom come here on visa to work. They have their families here, not citizens here. They're not permanently settled here. And visa for them is very important. Even their perspective on the idea of illegal immigration was similar to Donald Trump's, in the sense they saw that the illegal immigrants are in fact stomping on the rights and resources of the legal immigrants, for people who come in through the right channels, people who do all the paperwork, people who perhaps wait for many years to enter America and make a future and life here. They are the people who have perhaps suffered the most because of the issue of illegal immigration. So interestingly, the focus is on how to tackle the challenge of illegal immigrants. Donald Trump says he'll send them back. How do you send back 11 million people, and how soon and through what modes is something that we'll have to wait and watch. But this demarcation would be important. The legal immigrants who come through the right channels and the illegal ones who are seen, in Trump's words, as aliens and abuser of America's resources.
Yes, reminds me of the Rwanda plan, by the way, by Rishi Sunak, the former Prime Minister of the UK. But Ambassador, last question to you. Will Trump keep some old faces in his team or mostly new? What's your hunch?
Oh, no, I think the standard conventional wisdom is that he was surrounded by too many adults in the room before. And all of them, a lot of them have badmouthed Trump, actually. I have in mind people like John Bolton and so on. So he is going to have a completely new set of people who will be from the business world, but the real criterion for selection will be unconditional loyalty. That is what he will, and I believe the Heritage Foundation, which is a right-wing think tank, has already prepared a list of 100 to 150 people who will occupy the top posts in the US. So they're well prepared this time. This is a Donald Trump who is going to be relatively unshackled, especially if the Senate is taken over, they've already won, and if the House of Representatives is also Republican, and he has got the kind of mandate that he has got, this is really the strongest mandate that Donald Trump could have hoped to get. So he will find the necessary people to really implement what he believes is the perfect way, and he thinks he can take United States back to the golden age.
Okay, but the next 4 years will be very interesting. A lot of surprises, a lot of unpredictability, and a lot of geopolitics in a different style that we've seen in the last 4 years. Well, we'll leave it at that. Thank you so much, Ambassador Mohan Kumar, Greg Simons, and Shubhendu Ghosh. It's been a marathon session for you, not just today, but over the last 1 month or so. So thank you, everyone, for joining us with your views. Well, as Donald Trump wins US presidency, the S&P 500 and the Dow scaled all-time highs on Wednesday and global stocks soared. Bitcoin climbed to record high. Here's more.
As the stage is now all set for Donald Trump's return to the White House, the Republicans gobbling up maximum seats in the US presidential election, capital markets around the globe rallied on Wednesday as Bitcoin hit a record high and the dollar was set for its biggest one-day jump since early 2023. US Treasury yields rose to their highest level since July as bond investors bet a Trump presidency could usher in tax cuts and tariff hikes that boosted deficit and inflation. Wall Street stock futures saw a significant boost. Both the S&P and Nasdaq futures surged over 2%, signaling investor confidence. Meanwhile, Bitcoin stood out in the cryptocurrency world, soaring to a record high of $75,397. This marked a 7% increase in just one day, the largest jump since 2023. In currency markets, the dollar index surged 1.5% to 104.97, the steepest one-day rise since early 2023. The jump put pressure on oil and commodity prices as a stronger dollar makes these resources pricier in other currencies. Shifting to Asia, markets followed the trend. Japan's Nikkei jumped 2.5%, while Chinese stock hit nearly 1 month highs. India's major indices also rallied. The Nifty 50 rose 1.12% and the Sensex was up 1.13%, marking the strongest performance since late September.
Sensex is up by 900 points. Yesterday also we saw it going up for the simple reason that the outcome of election presidential result, and he's supposed to be, market friendly, corporate friendly, and there are many things which currently market feels that under the circumstances, out of the two candidates, he was the best choice as far as markets are concerned.
In Europe, stocks rose over 1% as they mirrored gains in the US market, supported by the Trump win and Republican control of at least one chamber of Congress. Donald Trump recaptured the White House by winning more than 270 electoral college votes, according to Edison Research projections. In his campaign, Trump promised a 10% tariff on imports from all countries and warned the European Union of potential consequences for not buying enough American products. Tripti Tripathi's report for DD India.
That's it then in the special broadcast Trump 2.0. Thanks for watching.